I'm taking a brief break from book lovers, fully of my own accord and not at all because I lost my library hold on the audiobook and I have to wait for it again. So just know that this was my choice. But I've been mulling this over for a while, and I'm going to read the first Dexter book by, I think, Jeff Lindsay. If you don't know what Dexter is, I will briefly tell you, but I'm sure you do. It was a show I used to watch a long time ago on Showtime. The premise of the show / book is that Dexter is a serial killer who also is a blood splatter analyst at Miami Metro. And it's basically the show. I don't know about the books because I haven't read the books, but the show is him just living his life as a serial killer, dodging getting caught. So the show has 8 seasons. It famously ended very poorly in a way that everyone hated and has been making fun of for maybe 15 years. So they decided to bring the show back for one more season. A couple years ago, they brought back Michael C. Hall, the star, and they messed up the ending again. So I won't say what the ending is or anything, but very recently they announced, actually over this last weekend at Comic-Con, they announced that they are going to try one more time, which deeply amuses me. They were already going to do a prequel show, which was Dexter in 1991, I believe, when he was 20. He has a sister who is a detective. She's going to be in it as a teenager. And then his father, his adoptive father, is the one who taught him how to serial kill without getting caught. That's the other part of the premise. His dad noticed dark tendencies in him when he was young. His father, who was a detective, and he basically trained him to be a perfect, uncatchable serial killer. And the show, the prequel coming out is, I suppose, Dexter's early days of killing. But what really got me on board was the third try sequel series called Dexter Resurrection. So they said it is definitely a sequel. Michael C. Hall is going to be in it, and it's supposed to take place in present day. And me being an idiot thought, you know what? I will definitely watch both of these shows, even though I was burned twice by these terrible endings, because some people never learn, and frankly, I deserve to suffer. But Sarah is also a big fan of Dexter, and has been. I made her watch that show a long time ago. We have re-watched it, I think at least once, or at least part of it once. I have rewatched it several times. I know it pretty well. We are currently rewatching it on season 5. And I thought it'd be fun to try and read the whole book series and compare it. Obviously, I'm not going to be reading all 8 or 9 books in this particular vlog, but I will update you with information as it comes. I have just got the first book on audio. I listened to 15 or so minutes, and I know this is only going to be the first scene because from what I've heard, the books and the show deviate severely. But the first scene of the show and the first scene of the book are identical. Dexter is hunting a priest who has harmed some children, and the details that it copies are just identical. And they have one of my favorite lines from Dexter in the book, which is, "I'm a very neat monster." I always think that's fun. So one scene down and it is exactly like the show, but I know that it's going to veer off. The premise of the first season of the show is there's another serial killer in Miami, and he's killing people and basically leaving the bodies cut up with their blood fully drained, wrapped up as presents for Dexter. The serial killer is kind of stalking Dexter, and I don't know if that's the plot of the book yet. I'm going to listen a little bit more and then do another update to tell you about the differences or similarities, but that's where I'm at right now. I'm very excited to finally actually try and read this, and I'm hoping I get past the fact that the narrator is not Michael C. Hall, which was my biggest hesitation because he narrates the show and his voice is so Dexter to me that anything else sounds wrong. So I will be back momentarily. I didn't realize how true my statement of momentarily was, but I just want to pop in to say apparently Dexter Morgan is an asexual king. I didn't know, but he just basically said, he would never have kids because sex is icky and he couldn't imagine doing it because there's no dignity in it. Hello, representation. I wouldn't have popped in again this soon, except I have a thought. This book was written quite a long time ago. In my opinion, not long enough for some of the weird racist stuff I've already run into. I was wondering if the characters that are people of color in the show were going to be in the book as well, because I knew the book was older. So far, yes. I'm put off by how he described one of the characters, Vince, who in the show, in the book too, you might know him as the guy who is the other like scientisty guy in Miami Metro with Dexter, bald glasses. In the book, he's described as half Japanese. And the way that Dexter describes him is he said, like, he called his smile an Asian smile. I don't know what that means. It's really weird. And then Detective LaGuardia, Sergeant LaGuardia, she's the one in charge. I do not like how he talked about her, because he did this with Deb too, where he pointed out how like curvy and hot, like even though Dexter is coming off genuinely actually ace, he still can't help but describe them as like hot. His own sister, who she's his adopted sister, but he never knew a day without her, described her body as like a supermodel body, and was talking about how like luscious, I think he used the word luscious, she is, which is weird. Very different than in the show. In the show, Jennifer Carpenter, I think, is the actress. She's very slender, definitely not super curvy, like she's being described in the book. And then LaGuardia, Dexter said there was a rumor about her that she slept with someone to get her position. He's like, that's not possible, because she's more, even though she's so beautiful and curvy and hot, she's more masculine than feminine, which I guess he's insinuating that because she's like tough, she's masculine, and because she's masculine, she wouldn't have sex. I don't know. But then he said what actually got her that far is her being Cuban and her being like tough. And I didn't love that he included her being Cuban as part of it, because he wasn't saying it like, I think the captain in the show, whoever's above LaGuardia, he might have in the show, because he's a jerk, said to her that her being a person of color was part of it. And you watch that and you understand, oh, he's a jerk and that's why he's saying that. But like Dexter shouldn't feel that way. I don't know. It just came off weird to me. But I won't necessarily pop in with more complaints about that kind of thing, just because I think I can say, oh, this book was written in like 2002 or something, and you understand that it's going to have some stuff in it. The other thing I wanted to say, different than the show, the body parts left for Dexter in the book were specifically wrapped the way he wraps bodies, because the way he does it is he cuts them up and he puts them in garbage bags. And the corpse was found specifically the way he does it in the book. In the show, it was just, I think they were just out. Some of them had bows on them, but just that's a little bit different, and I wanted to say that. But until there's like significant different stuff, I probably won't come in with another clip, so it might be much farther into the book. You know, I've given this a lot of thought, and if I had a kid who I thought had serial killer tendencies or was so deeply traumatized by something that happened to them when they were very little, I think instead of teaching them how to be the perfect serial killer, I probably would have put them in therapy. And boo, boo I say, because my other favorite line, my actual genuine favorite line from the entire series of Dexter, he has a sister named Deb. Dexter has spent the entire first 15 minutes of the show or whatever establishing that he has no feelings, doesn't care about anything. He is completely numb. He talks to his sister. In his internal monologue, he said, if I had feelings, I'd have them for her. And I love that line. And it turns out in the book, he says that about his dad. Boo. I'm actually almost done with the book now. And it hasn't been that long. It's a really short book, 8 hours. And what I find the strangest is how slight it is. You have 12 episodes of season 1 to compare it to. That's what the first season is the first book. It fleshes out all the side characters, you know their deal, all that. The book kind of doesn't bother. They don't even have a name for the serial killer. He's the ice truck killer in the show. So far, I'm 75% in, they don't have a name for him. He's only directly interacted with Dexter kind of one time in the show. He was leaving him stuff and really poking at him, and he's only barely done anything directly to Dexter. And it feels sloppy on the author's part, because I will spoil this, but okay, so Dexter has a past. His adoptive father found him when he was 3. In the book, it's hinted that he found him in just this terrible scenario and he adopted him, and we don't know, but something so terrible happened to Dexter when he was 3 that it made him a serial killer. In the show, they do a lot more hints about that kind of thing and really build it up and build up everything around it. So when you get the big reveal, it's like, oh, wow, okay. And there's no build up whatsoever in the book. There's not really anything more than a couple mentions of like, oh, something awful happened to me, but Dexter doesn't really seem to care. And there's not any build up with him and Ice Truck Killer, other than he left Dexter like a little Barbie head and Barbie limbs cut up. Same with the bodies. And they played like a bit of a chase game with cars, and he tossed the head of a dead person out the truck at Dexter, just like in the show. But so the final reveal is going to feel so out of left field because there's absolutely no setup for it. In the show, they had the Ice Truck Killer doing stuff like with Dexter's sister. They had him in it, which obviously you can't do too much of in the book because it's fully from Dexter's POV. But I guess my word of the day for this, the whole thing would be slight. The book just feels slight to me. Not a lot of stuff fleshed out, not a lot of backstory, I guess, and it feels like nothing's happening. Bodies keep showing up. There's no progression, really. Deb pops up to complain about not being a detective or being taken seriously, but other than bodies showing up, nothing's building. It's very odd, but I have 25% more, so I'll see how it goes. One of the big differences between the show and the book is that in the book, Dexter thinks that he might be the serial killer, like he's blacking out in his sleep and killing people because it seems so like him, the way the blood is drained because he's obsessed with blood and the way the bodies are wrapped up. And it's like, who can get into his apartment to leave the Barbie head? Oh, maybe it's Dexter. So he goes through the whole thing thinking that he might be the killer. And we're near the end. And just like in the show, Deb gets kidnapped. But in the show, at least, it was set up so it's believable how she can get herself into that situation. In the book, she comes off like she's just not very good at her job, which she's kind of not. Even in the show, she's just not very good at her job. She's a loudmouth and she doesn't know when to shut up. I think one of my problems with this book is Dexter's so dry and emotionless in a bad way. He's very interesting in the show, and he's also pretty dry, but I guess maybe it's different because you get to see an actor playing him versus getting the point of view. We're in his head without mercy in the book. And he's really boring, and I don't like his point of view. I don't like Dexter. I love Dexter in the show. I love his character a lot. He's my favorite character in the show. In the book, he's terribly, terribly boring, which is disappointing. But these stories are pretty quick, so it's not like a torture session. I've read a lot worse. I just think that they pull off entertainingly dry in the show better than in the book. So like the ending was totally set up in the show, whereas it feels like it came out of left field. As I said, in the book, it's gonna have a twist ending that doesn't make any sense. And I guess I will spoil it because, you know, I can't really talk about it, but the serial killer ends up being Dexter's biological brother. And in the show, it's set up pretty decently. when you're getting flashbacks of Dexter when he was young and you know something happened, but you don't know what. And then you find out stuff with his mother, that she was like a police informant. And that's how Dexter's adoptive father met her, and they had like a little affair. So he had stakes in Dexter as a person before he adopted him, because it's his fault that the mom got killed, and this stuff comes out in season 1. And none of that is in the book at all. So it's just, it's a worse version of the show. The show just has a lot more to it in a good way. The book, I can't even say serves as a good thriller or mystery. It's just not. If the show didn't exist and I was reading this book, the novelty of the main character being a serial killer is not enough to make this a fun read or anything. None of the characters stand out. The plot is boring. Bodies just keep dropping and nothing's really happening. Dexter's killed 2 people so far, neither of them especially entertaining or informative. The one thing I thought was interesting is that if you watch the show, or I guess read the book, you'd know that the darkness in him, he calls his dark passenger, the thing that like makes him kill. In the book, when he's killing, he speaks like we instead of I. So I think that's interesting. But this book has given me absolutely nothing that I prefer over how they do it in the show. And I'm going to continue reading them if I can get them at the library, which I think I can. I'm going to try and read the rest, see how quickly I can get through them. But I don't feel like this was worth it. If you're like a huge, huge fan of the show, I just don't know what you would necessarily get out of the book, because I just think it's all pulled off so much neater and better in the show. So I still have the ending to listen to. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to have a big update at the end, because it's just kind of a letdown, and that's the long and short of it. Popping in to express my utter horror at Detective LaGuardia using the F slur. So unnecessary. And she, this is a big change from the show, but she's suspicious of Dexter being up to something, being involved in this murder case. Sergeant Dokes, he's the one who's suspicious of Dexter in the show, and Maria LaGuardia is just like, no, it's fine, whatever. She has a crush on him, crush on Dexter, I mean. And Dokes is really suspicious of Dexter. Dokes is almost not even in this book at all, but he also doesn't like Dexter in this, and he thinks there's something up with him. But Maria's the one who's like chased him down because she thinks he's involved, and Dokes isn't even there with her. So I'm curious if this is going to end with Maria dying in book 1, and then like book 2 is Dokes being suspicious of Dexter, because obviously it's a suspicious situation. But I thought that was an interesting change. And she's like, I knew there was something wrong with you because you turned down my advances, basically. Her advances being her sexually assaulting him by rubbing the front of his pants, and he like got up quickly and ran away, and she's like, you pushed me down. It's like, well, you sexually assaulted him. But yeah, so more twists to come, I assume. Okay, so I finished the book. Again, spoilers. I'm spoiling the ending of the book and probably the show too, so be prepared. So I hated it. I hated it because it felt so unearned. In the show, I still think it's kind of corny and random that the serial killer ends up being Dexter's brother, but at least it's like built up to, and they interact before he finds out. They have moments together. They build up his relationship with Rita and how that is, and they introduce him to his brother Brian the killer long before the ending. He meets him at the end of the book, and that's the only scene they have together after this whole entire thing. It's very weird, very sloppy. He, the other killer, kills LaGuardia, and Dexter almost kills Deb on purpose, which I hate. Dexter walks into this, I think it's the storage container that his mother was murdered in. He walks in, Brian the killer is there, Deb is strapped to a table. He's basically like, hey, you and me are alike. None of these other people get it. Kill your fake sister and let's run off into the sunset together. And Dexter's like tempted by it, and he almost kills Deb. Deb's awake for like all of this. He's in the middle of being tempted to kill her. LaGuardia walks in and finds them, and she was already suspicious of Dexter. So she's like, wow, this is interesting. I should call this in and let Dokes come see it. And I should maybe, instead of that, shoot you two, or maybe even all three. And then she laughs, like she literally suggests that she might also kill Deb for being in on it. She's strapped to a table at the mercy of these two people. And because she's a woman, I guess she's got to be cartoonishly evil. So she's not only a sexual predator, but also just like out of her mind. She legitimately threatens to kill Deb, shoot her dead, because she hates Deb through this whole entire book for whatever reason, I guess, because women are competition to her. That's kind of what the insinuation is that all women are competition to her. And Deb and her hate each other. The whole book is them calling each other names, which it bugged me in the show too. It's like, if LaGuardia wanted to get with Dexter, it never made sense to me that she would be so mean to his sister. So overall, I didn't enjoy this book. I didn't think it was very good. It's just a watered down version of the show. If any of the story sounds interesting to you, go watch the show. It's really good. The actors are really good. The story is a lot better. I was just overall really disappointed. I'm curious though. It sounds like book 2 is going to be Dokes being suspicious of Dexter, which is obviously interesting. I really like Dokes in the show, so I guess I'll see when I eventually dive into that. I am halfway through the sequel to Dexter. I think it's called Dearly Devoted Dexter. Each title, I think, is some kind of joke like that, so it's going to be really hard for me to keep them straight. But I'm halfway through the second book. I have not updated since starting it, or even that I started it. I was under the impression I was going to read about 15% and then stop to do an update. But then nothing happened that was interesting, and I wanted to wait until I had a better handle on the plot. So, in the sequel, it does not say how long it's been since the first book. I guess it doesn't really matter. There's been no mention of his serial killer brother being out there, but that's fine. We pick up basically where we left off, at least in terms of characters. Deb is now a detective. Dexter is now being stalked by Dokes, who is suspicious of him, just like in season 2 of the show. I'll say spoilers again for this book and the show. So far, the book is absolutely nothing like season 2 of the show. It is completely different. The only thing similar is that Dokes is on to him. And that, I mean it, that is the only thing. The plot is Dokes, Sergeant Dokes used to work in special ops or black ops. I don't know what it's called, but he basically did some very intense, crazy stuff back in the day. And then now he is just working for the police department. Very trigger happy, apparently. And there is a character that came in after they found the first body who's supposed to be, I believe, like Lundy from, I think he comes in season 2 for the Bay Harbor Butcher stuff. He is significantly younger than that character, if you remember, or if you haven't seen. Agent Lundy, I believe, is an actual agent from the FBI. He comes in to work on a serial killer case. He is much, much, much older than Deb. They have a relationship, and in the book it's clear that this character also has a relationship with her. They haven't explicitly said it until just now. Deb said basically she fell in love with him in the past week. He is only in his 40s versus he's literally in his 60s in the show, and Deb's like 30, I think, maybe 31. So it's less, I don't want to say bad, because she's a grown adult, but have whatever opinion you want on age gaps. But it grossed me out when I was younger watching it, because she was just so much younger. Anyway, that's not the point. So this other character, he's obviously a stand-in for Lundy, except he used to work in the special ops with Dokes. Basically, they did some kind of job, betrayed one of their guys, and now that guy is supposedly back to pick them off. The body that was found to start off the story was horribly mutilated, and I think it was one of the people that used to be on the team with Dokes in the Lundy stand-in. So that's where we're at. The character Kyle, he's the Lundy stand-in, has been kidnapped by the killer, and I guess Deb and Dexter are going to go get him. We are at the halfway point of this book. Not much has happened, but it feels like more is happening than in the first book. The first book, it felt like it was just pure vibes, absolutely nothing occurring. This, though, it's going really fast because it's establishing things, at least plot-wise, not necessarily character-wise. It's not informing me of the characters any more than the first book did, which is fine. It's a pretty consumable thriller-esque book if you like that. There's no real mystery to it. It's not terribly thrilling. I guess I maybe it would be considered a crime drama. There's not a lot of drama in it because not a lot's happening. He really hasn't even mentioned his brother, which I think is very odd because I know he comes back later. But I fear this will be my only update for the entire book besides when I finished it, because really nothing of note is happening. I think one of the things that annoys me about these books is that Dexter can barely go a paragraph without mentioning that he doesn't have feelings and that he's a serial killer. And I don't like that kind of thing. It's just, it gets to a point where it's very, very grating when every time anyone says something to him, like someone can be talking about like being in love and he's got to be like, I don't know what that's like. I don't have feelings. I can never be in love. And it's every paragraph. It must be several times a page for real. And then there's also a bunch of examples because he accidentally got engaged, I guess, to Rita. So he's having a bachelor party and there's strippers dancing on him. And his entire dialogue is, wow, I bet people would kill to be where I am, but I would kill to get away. And I get it. I get that you're a serial killer and you don't have feelings and you don't like this, but I wish that he had a personality outside of reminding the audience what he is, because I just feel like a lot of the book is really bogged down with that kind of thing, and he does not have much of a personality, definitely unlike the show. And then there's a big change from the show that I don't like. Cody, Rita's son, he thinks is showing signs of possibly enjoying killing animals, and Dexter actively wants to teach him how to be a serial killer. He's like, I want to make another person like me, and I really, really, really hate that. Show Dexter wouldn't do that. I obviously like Show Dexter better, but it bothers me a lot that he's excited at the idea of teaching a kid to be a serial killer, because it's just, I don't want to say a bit too much. It's just kind of stupid, I guess. I don't know. It could be interesting in better hands, but to me, it's just coming off kind of off-putting. I don't know where it's going to go yet. I'm kind of hoping it turns out Dexter's wrong and he doesn't have these tendencies. I don't love how comfortable this author is doing accents. It's just, I don't like it. He does all kinds of accents. He does accents for like the Cuban characters and the Hispanic characters and the Black characters. And I don't know what race this author is, but I hope it's not white, because that's a heck of a choice to be doing all these accents when you super don't have to. But he's got like a kidnapping problem in these books. Once again, another character got kidnapped. We think Dokes is kidnapped. I'm wondering if he's actually the killer. I don't know if they'll do that twist because it's a little lame. It just seems like, oh, Dokes is kidnapped because Dexter keeps saying how now all of his problems are solved. So obviously his problems can't be solved. I'm pretty close to the end. My theory is that Dokes is the killer, which I don't love. I like the Dokes character in the show quite a bit. I thought he was interesting, and he's less interesting in the book. I have finished the book. I don't have much more to say. I was wrong about Dokes being the killer. He was in fact a victim of the killer, not dead. He did get rather mutilated. He got his tongue cut off, both hands cut off, and his foot. So I guess he won't be a problem for Dexter anymore. So yeah, I thought it was kind of a lame ending for the character, because I think it would be interesting if throughout the book he actually had someone who was onto him and pursuing him in a way where they don't know for sure, but they think maybe. I just think that this could use some of that tension, because it doesn't have any of it as of now. Like, Maria was vaguely suspicious for a little tiny bit of the book, and then she died, and then Dokes was suspicious this whole book, and then he basically is rendered unable to continue, as far as I know, his investigation. So I like this one better than the first one. For sure more entertaining, a lot more going on. So I'm hopeful about the future ones. Absolutely nothing in common with season 2. So if you're wondering about that, I've seen Dexter all the way through quite a few times. I don't think there's even any references to this book in season 2. It's interesting. It follows that pattern of adaptations. Same with like True Blood, where you stick with the first book for the first season pretty well, and then the second you get past that, you totally go in a different direction. I don't really know why they do that. It seems maybe malicious to get the book audience to watch, and they're like, oh wow, an adaptation of the book I like, and then by the time they're roped in, you fully change it. Because as far as I can think off the top of my head, that is just kind of the pattern. You get one season based off book 1, and then the rest just whatever. I think Game of Thrones doesn't do that. I haven't watched Game of Thrones. I think I'd give this book also 2.5 stars, because it was better, but it wasn't that much better. I wasn't going to do a clip so quick, but I just started book 3, and I just thought it was funny because Dexter's talking about serial killer trophies, and he's like, well, if anyone were to stumble upon my trophies, which are a long wooden box with glass slides in them, each with a drop of blood. He's like, well, if anyone found that, they wouldn't assume anything sinister. They wouldn't know what to think of it. And it's like, yeah, man, I would assume something sinister. If I was in some guy who I was friends with's house and I found a hidden wooden box and I opened it and there was blood slides that had blood in them, I would assume something sinister immediately. I don't know what kind of world he lives in where you can find something like that hidden and then just be like, oh, well, that's just Dexter. He just has weird things. I get that he does blood stuff for a living, and if that was at his work, I wouldn't think anything. But there's no reason for it to be at the apartment, so that was just a silly little line. Also, it's getting to me how much he hates Rita. I really super don't like it. I'd be fine if he was just kind of indifferent to her, but it seems like he's got actual contempt for her, but he loves the kids. And now it's not just Cody that he wants to turn into a serial killer. He's decided that both of them have like more sinister desires and a dark passenger. So I guess he's going to try and make both of them into serial killers. I super don't like that, but we'll see. We'll see where it goes. If it's entertaining, at least, then I won't feel terribly upset because I have the show if I want a better version. I'm just kind of blown away by some of the choices here, specifically that they didn't implement any of them in the show. The first season is such a thin, like, adaptation of the first book. And I don't even know what the plot for this third one is, but I'm positive it's not going to end up being what the plot for season 3 is. So it appears that this is going to be a thing. I didn't know what I was going to make this at first, but I guess I'm just going to read every single Dexter book, because accidentally I have been ending up reading a book a night for the last few nights. I'm on book 3 now, so I'm going to just go ahead and continue, and I guess read all 8 of them, and unfortunately bring you along for that. I'll say, just to remind you, there will be spoilers for the show and the books. I will try and only say what I need to, but I'm going to end up spoiling things. Definitely for the books. I'll try and restrain myself from the show unless it's relevant, but I'm going to definitely attempt to do a book a day for the remainder of it, and they're actually pretty short, so that seems like it's doable. So I'm on, I think Dexter in the Dark is the third one. I don't have a lot to say about it. I'm actually halfway through it right now. The main plot in the background, Dexter is engaged to Rita and they are working on the wedding, and he is supposedly working on making Aster and Cody into little serial killers, which you know how I feel about that. I super hate it. The killer plot it could be interesting, so I'm holding out hope that it does something interesting with it. But there was a double murder on a campus, and Dexter went to go investigate, and something about the scene of it basically made the dark passenger, which is the voice in his head that urges him to kill, go away. So his secondary inner monologue is gone. When he kills people in the books, he uses pronouns like we and us and our, only when he's killing, because the dark passenger is right there with him. So dark passenger is gone. That reminds me of a plot to one of the Mercy Thompson books. If you know, you know. I won't explain further, but that's what's going on. So his dark passenger is gone. He's freaking out, and they're trying to figure out who killed these people. Please forgive me for this, but I have made a grave mistake that I will take absolutely no accountability for, because in my opinion, it's not my fault. I was suspicious though, but it was given so little attention that I fully missed it, and they keep referencing it now, but they didn't really reference it before, so I was just confused. But spoilers again. At the end of the first book, the non-ice truck killer, Brian, Dexter's brother, kidnaps Deb, and she's like strapped down, and he wants Dexter to kill her. And that whole final scene, he's like holding a knife above her, thinking about killing her. And I remember thinking, oh, she's awake for all of this. She's hearing everything they're saying. Like, right? She's awake, because I couldn't figure it out, because it's like she wasn't talking or anything. I was so confused. It was so poorly done. She was just there witnessing everything, listening to them talk, which I believe he referenced the fact that he's a serial killer in front of her. So I was like, oh my God, does she know what's going on? And then like the scene ends, and then the book ends. The scene ends with LaGuardia dying, and then the next scene is the epilogue, in which we are at her funeral, and Deb is like palling around with Dexter. She's just like elbowing him. She's like giddy that she's finally a detective. And I was like, oh, I guess maybe I misheard. She was unconscious. She doesn't know anything. It turns out, no. She did find out Dexter is a serial killer at the end of book 1. She's known for all of book 2 and all of book 3 so far, which I'm over 50% in. And it doesn't really affect anything at all. They don't discuss it. I'm listening on 3 times speed, but I don't feel like that really causes issues for me listening to details, because I catch the details. I wouldn't listen on 3 times speed if I wasn't getting the details. But I think the writing was just so messy that I missed it. But there was like no reference in book 2 to her knowing. Like the most he said was stuff like, she understands what I am, but I confused that with the fact that he said that from the beginning she was like onto him in some kind of way, but she just didn't know what was wrong with him, just that something was wrong with him. I thought that's what he meant. He meant she literally knew he was a serial killer. It just doesn't come up. It's the strangest thing, and it's finally coming up now, because he went to visit someone for the wedding, and the guy turned up dead, and Deb's like, did you kill him? Did you do that? And he's like, no, and she doesn't believe him really. But like, she found out he's a serial killer, and it didn't do anything. It did nothing to their relationship. She's just as aggressive to him now as she was this whole time. This is baffling. This is some of the weirdest writing I've ever run into in my 20 or so years of being a reader. I cannot, maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe it was actually really obvious and I did miss it. I was like maybe playing Candy Crush or something. But I mean, if you have a big twist like that and it gets referenced so little that someone could not pay attention for what must have been at most 30 seconds, then you're doing something wrong, because it needs to come up. They need to have a conversation. It needs to affect the relationship, but it's not. Maybe it will from here on out. I don't know, but I have confirmed that she did find out he was a serial killer at the end of book 1, and it hasn't come up. And what definitely hasn't come up is the fact that Brian is Dexter's brother, that he has a biological brother who's a serial killer. Deb just doesn't care. I need to, after I finish these, go find other people's opinions who've read these, because to me, these are wildly sloppy, and I'm in quite a state. The Cody Astor thing is really starting to get to me. I thought it was lame that he wanted to, at first it sounded like he just wanted to train Cody because he's like, I sense a darkness in him. Because their father was a drug addict who was physically abusive. It's getting compared to what happened to Dexter. And it's like, well, what happened to Dexter turned him into a serial killer, which I never bought, obviously. I thought that it was kind of up for you to decide if that was the case. And maybe it's like that now with Cody and Astor. But it's irritating me a lot because it's not even just Cody, it's both of them. Both of them happen to have whatever thing in their brain that Dexter has to make him a serial killer. Like, it would have been a little more believable if it was just one of them, but it just happens to be both of them. He wants to train both of them to be serial killers because he thinks that both of them are going to grow up to do that anyway. We just had a scene where the two of them taped a cat to a workbench and were about to kill it with a screwdriver or something, or hedge clippers, and Rita caught them. If I caught my kids doing something like that, I would have them committed. I guess I'm just cheesed off by this direction it's taking. I thought maybe it was going to be that Dexter wanted to see it in the kids and he ends up being wrong, but he's right. He's correct. Yeah, they're both little killers who kill animals. Cody kills them while Astor watches, basically, which I think is awful. I really am just hating this storyline. I finished Dexter in the Dark. I didn't love it. I don't know if it's an inside joke or anything, but there was yet another kidnapping. Cody and Astor got kidnapped by the group of killers. There's like a cult. It's a bunch of people who worship a demon entity, and spoilers, but one of them threatens to kill Astor. The one part I did like was Dexter was threatening the people that took Cody and Astor, and he's like, I want my kids. And I always love when Dexter calls them his kids. I think that's great. But Cody ends up stabbing the cult leader guy and killing him. They get saved, and then the book ends with Rita and Dexter getting married. He's standing at the altar, dark passenger gone, thinking, oh, well, I'm going to accept, I guess, my boring life of PTA meetings and just normal people stuff. And then, like, Cody looks up at him during the wedding ceremony, and he whispers, he's like, your shadow's back. And it felt like Cody could supernaturally sense that Dexter's inner monologue is back. And then Dexter's like, what do you mean? And then the next second, he senses that the dark passenger is back. And I was just, I'm not sure what to think of it, because then the epilogue, it feels like it insinuates there is in fact supernatural stuff going on, which that can't be right. But it's like this third person-y, omniscient kind of POV of like, the thing is watching and waiting, and it's done this before, and it's going to cause darkness and bad things are going to happen. And I don't know if it was truly trying to insinuate that something supernatural exists in these books. Because the thing with Cody could just be, he has a darkness inside of him. And sometimes people who are messed up can like sense it in other people, which is what I kind of felt like before, because Cody said the thing about his shadow before. But then it was like Cody sensed that the dark passenger returned, when up until now the dark passenger was literally just a little monologue voice in Dexter's head, like his id, I guess, or something. But now it's kind of insinuating that it's something more. I don't really know what to think. I don't know if anything will be revealed. Also, it does not say in the text if anyone found out Cody killed that guy. They were kidnapped in this place, and they had to stay there overnight because there's a hurricane. And then the police came and found Dexter, Aster, and Cody. But it straight up does not say if he told the cops or Rita or anyone that Cody killed someone. I'm guessing not, because he isn't in a psychiatric facility or anything. But he stabs the guy and he says, see, I told you I was ready to kill someone. Because Cody wants to kill someone. He kept telling Dexter, I'm ready to do it. I want to do it. And that's that, I suppose. Tomorrow I will be starting the 4th Dexter book. I'm doing my best here to not be the most negative person on the planet. I really don't want this to be completely negative. I just want to show my experience in reading it as a massive Dexter fan. I need to tell you, I am a huge fan of the show. I've seen the show all the way through many times, and I've seen the first 3 seasons of the show even more times. I didn't finish the new season, the Dexter New Blood or whatever, the snow one, but that's why me and Sarah are currently rewatching, is to get through it and get prepared for the Dexter prequel and the Dexter sequel, which we're both excited about. Me more than either of us. I'm so stoked. I wanted to like these, and I'm really disappointed that it didn't so far. But I am only about a third in, so there's a chance for it to turn around. I just think that it's kind of wasting a really good premise, because you see the show executing the premise great, and then these are the books it's based on, and it's just kind of blah. So we'll see. They are ramping up. I'm actually liking the books more and more as they go. They're becoming more entertaining, so there is that. But I don't know if that's going to continue, but I will pop back in when I have an actual opinion of book 4. So I will see you in a moment. How are you?
You recording?
Yeah.
That's a genuine question?
Yeah.
That's a genuine thing you want to ask me right now?
Yeah.
Not good. Dax, I love you so much for trying. Like, bless your little heart.
Little emphasize. Look, I put these, I hung these up for her. These are puzzles she did, but I hung them, so I get half the credit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I don't like your tone. I'm reading Dexter, and Sarah is having to listen to me rant about. Do you want to say your feelings about the show? Since we're both watching the show together, but I'm the only one reading the books.
I love the first 3 seasons.
Oh, is that... Do you get joy from the others at all? Season 4...
Get progressively worse at season 4 and on. I still enjoy season 4. Season 5 really annoyed me. I feel nothing for season 6. I've watched it once before, but I don't remember anything actually past season 4.
Really?
Really.
I've rewatched Dexter a lot.
It's insane. I remember nothing. And I just don't have any feelings toward it. The storyline they're doing with Dexter and, like, the religious guy, this is going to sound so weird.
Spoilers, by the way.
It was one episode on Lucifer versus a whole season on Dexter, but Lucifer did it better.
Well, I mean, I wasn't intending
I took my rat to the vet, and it was almost pointless.
She has an ear infection. She's going to be fine. But, yeah, because I just got a hankering to randomly read the books. Because, well, I sort of randomly, because we're rewatching the show, because I said I wanted to finish the new season because they're doing the new shows, and I thought, oh, I'll read the book too, because I was always curious how different they were. It's wildly different. I told Sarah yesterday, oh no, there's a thread loose on my shirt.
Want the rats to find it? Hi, some life-ruining shit happened. Don't worry about it. Cappie, you were saying?
That the books, it basically follows that same pattern of, I think I said this before in a clip, the adaptation thing of, like, the first season follows the first book to some extent, but then from then on it's, like, totally wild. And I use True Blood as an example, but True Blood followed the second book a tiny bit, right? You've read the True Blood books. I'd
say the first season is like 90% like plot loyal, not necessarily like loyal, because they do change a lot. And then the second season, I'd say 50 maybe. And then the third season, it's like the book kissed it and then walked away.
It's just an interesting pattern of them being like, we're going to adapt the first book, but then by the time it's over, they have their own ideas and want to do, like, basically their own fan fiction kind of it. It's like, well, the books already exist. We could just go off and do it. But the True Blood books, if you like the show, do you recommend reading? Do you recommend them? Yeah.
The tone is so different, so it's kind of hard to say, because at its heart, True Blood is a cozy mystery series.
That's what the author does typically, right?
Yeah. not quite cozy because some really bad shit happens, but it's like, it has the feel of a cozy mystery series, but it's not cozy, if that makes sense.
Would you then recommend it outside of, if you like the show, just like as a book series, is it good?
It is good. If you're not into mysteries, and I don't mean like thrillers.
Oh yeah, that's totally different. I think any reader would understand that.
I hate thrillers, but I like Sookie Stackhouse, so. I had a rat named Sookie.
I read the first Sookie, I think.
We read the first 2 or 3. Yeah.
Me?
Yeah. Recently.
3?
Well, not recently. We lived in the other house.
But, because like, I wouldn't recommend Dexter because I just don't think they're very good. And I'm in the middle of the 4th one now. I haven't done my clip for it yet, but they're just like, I don't know, Deb is a worse character. Dexter's a more boring character. He doesn't even like Rita. He's not even fond of her at all. And
that
really
is a bummer.
It actually really bothers me because in the show, in the first season, even the second, they did a pretty good job portraying the fact that he might not be in love with her because he thinks he can't be, but he's like clearly fond of her and to some extent enjoys her company. He seems to almost have contempt for her necessity in the books, and it's really off-putting because she's just a sweet woman who had a really bad husband who wants to do right by her kids. And she has this man coming in who doesn't love her and who's actively training both of her children to be serial killers. In the show, it's like, well, at the very least, he is a good partner because he does care about her and he really loves those kids. In the books, he emphasizes constantly that he cares deeply about the kids, at least. But he doesn't even like Rita, and I just super hate it. His relationship with Deb is fine, I guess, but Deb mostly just yells at him.
I am not reading anything right now, and clap if you're surprised. I did get
the
most adorable little thing, which is a teeny tiny vacuum, and we put a sticker on it that says, I am the ghost of my mistakes.
Yes. One of us has a sticker problem.
One of us has a fondness for ghosties. So.
One of us?
I guess both of us.
I bought the stickers.
Yeah, but I like it.
I like it also. That's why I bought it.
Anyway.
Yeah, so I guess the Dexter read isn't going super stellar. I don't like doing videos that like the whole thing's negative. I felt kind of bad with Twilight Princess because I didn't love those, but I didn't know. I thought I was going to go in liking it, and Dexter I wasn't sure about, but I just want to be honest with my opinion for the new show and stuff coming out. If people are curious about the books, don't want you to necessarily waste your time. I don't really know what people can get from this other than the experience of being like, well, I wanted to compare it to the show because I don't feel like these books are entertaining as books.
So, even with the videos of hers that I'm not a part of, I do watch them later. So for anyone, you need to push that further.
You?
So for anyone who watched the House of Leaves video, do you remember when Cappie said that she had to take a break because she went to the bathroom and she thought she heard something growling?
Okay. Oh, God.
That just happens in our house.
What do you mean that just happens?
So back when we lived in Arizona, there would be times where I thought I heard growling out in the hallway. And there was one time Dad got up to go to the bathroom and he heard growling coming from his closet.
I didn't know that. So if you didn't watch the House of Leaves review, which I'm going to assume you didn't because I get like 4 views on each of these, House of Leaves is basically a haunted weird house. And the character who's narrating, who's doing the examination of the files, kept thinking he heard growling, like there's a monster somewhere, just somewhere watching him. And I think the same was happening to the guy in the house. And I was reading, I only read late at night, because I'm very smart. I went to the bathroom, and I don't know if you know what our hallway looks like, but my room is over close here, and the bathroom's all the way over there. I was walking back, and it was dark, and I thought I heard growling, and I stopped, and I didn't know what it was, but it sounded like growling, and I hightailed it back to my room, and I think I recorded that clip, but I was like genuinely really freaked out because it sounded like growling, and I was literally just reading a part where I thought it was, obviously I didn't know what it was. It wasn't Cujo. Cujo I think was asleep in your room, and like I know what her growls sound like. She's a very little dog, but it unsettled me. But Sarah, I don't know if we can say this without it making you feel all not good, but Sarah has a bit of a specter issue and has since, I think, before I knew her. Do you want to explain, or do you want to?
Technically, it's been following my parents around for their whole marriage.
Do you want to explain, or do you not want to?
There's just something in our house, and there has been since I was born. Before I was born.
I don't really go for the ghost stuff, but every once in a while there's something weird.
The cat thing.
Which one?
I told you every night a cat jumps on my bed and there's
Yeah.
not always a cat there.
That one was weird because I don't know what the explanation was, but way back.
It still happens.
To you, not to me.
Yeah.
But it happened to me where I was staying at Sarah's because I didn't always live with her, obviously. I lived with my own family. And when I would sleep over at her house on the weekends, I had a cot or a couch. And I would, like, go to bed, and when I would lay down, and I would feel exactly what it felt when, like, a cat jumps on the bed, which if you have a cat, you know what it feels like, just like a little animal jumping on the bed. And I would look up, and there wouldn't be anything there. And to this day, I don't really know why I felt that. It's definitely the most supernaturally-esque thing I've ever felt.
Cappie doesn't believe in that stuff. I grew up with it.
I don't, because I just don't, I guess. I don't know. I would love to believe, I guess, that there's something beyond what we can see. I don't necessarily want to take on the fear of something malevolent also being able to exist when we have so many malevolent things just in life in general. So maybe my heart just doesn't want to believe it. I got enough going on. Anyway, back to book 4 of Dexter.
That was just a fun update I wanted to share with y'all.
Yeah, I also just wanted Sarah to pop in so that you knew she still existed. She's just not reading. She's doing stuff on her rat channel.
Listen. I would say that I'm trying, but I'm not really trying to read.
Well,
I don't know what to do about reading anymore. I'm trying to figure it out, I guess.
the thing is, the rat channel takes up a lot of her time. So if you want to see her and learn about rats, the link is down in the comments or the description. But that's where she is. She's not really reading. I'm the only one reading. But I'll try and put her in more clips. I'll try and force her to talk about things. We could do maybe a little a ghost? I'm on book 4 of Dexter, as I previously stated, and I haven't updated because there's nothing to say. I'm a third in. It's Dexter by design, and he's on his honeymoon with Rita at the beginning in Paris, which I kind of wonder if in season 2, when he does a certain thing in Paris, it was supposed to be a reference to this. Probably not, but not a lot. Oh, there's a drill stuck to my hand. Not a lot of interesting stuff's happened so far. They just discovered the bodies that are going to lead to this book's serial killer. I am wondering if we're going to keep up with the someone gets kidnapped in every book trope-ish, whatever you want to call it, pattern. I don't have a lot of thoughts on it. I was really put off by how little Dexter likes the company of Rita, and Deb just got stabbed, and that is the only stuff that's happened. They keep bringing Dokes back a little bit, not to do anything important, but I think it's interesting that they keep even bringing him back at all. I kind of like it, because again, I really like the Dokes character in the show, and I wish that they had kept him around for longer. I don't really know what their intentions are with him in the book. I don't really know anything that happens in the rest of the series. But yeah, just not a lot to say about this book. Maybe there'll be more later, but if the other books are any indication, then no. Rita got kidnapped by the serial killer. It has to be a joke at this point. I refuse to believe that every single book has one of the characters get kidnapped, and it's not on purpose and a joke, but that is the conclusion of book 4. She got kidnapped by the serial killer, and Dexter saved her. And also, she's pregnant. The last thing you find out in the whole entire book is that she's pregnant. So he's going to have a child soon, just like in the show. He has a son named Harrison, named after his evil dad. Yeah, I really don't have a lot to say about this book. It was pretty boring, very not memorable. The least interesting killer so far. I think it was probably the most boring book so far, even the first one. So We are at the halfway point here for the whole series. I'm hoping it starts ramping up a little bit because, I mean, if he's going to have a baby, it might be slightly more interesting. But so far, still no similarities with the show. Absolutely not a single plot line that is similar other than, I suppose, Rita getting pregnant and them getting married. Like, I'm really genuinely astonished by how little they took from the source material, not just plots, but character behavior. Because this Dexter is completely different than the Dexter in the show in so many ways. So yeah, that is the halfway marker. We are on to book 5 now. Okay, so for the sake of this video not being 1,000 years long, I'm going to cut it off at the halfway point and continue immediately into the next one of the last 4. So I hope you enjoyed this little roller coaster, and if nothing, I hope that at least if you had some concerns or curiosity about the Dexter books, that you now have the information you're hoping to gain without necessarily running out and buying an $80 box set of the books or anything. But I appreciate anyone who might have stayed for this misery fest. I hate that this whole video is super negative, but this is my own fault. I don't love thrillers, if you can call it this, but I really love Dexter, so I'm in it for the long haul. I will hopefully be back really soon with part 2. So thank you so much for watching. And if you read these books, I would love to get your opinion on them so I can know whether or not I'm in the minority, because there was 8 of these, so they must have been really loved to some extent. So anyway, let me know. I will see you next time. Bye.